Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're taking you on a pretty massive reality-altering exploration of the Harry Potter universe.
Yeah, we are. It's a really intense one today.
It really is because, when you look at any sprawling historical event or a sweeping narrative, it can often feel like this giant, precarious tower of Jenga blocks. You see this towering structure of fate and destiny, and it looks so incredibly solid. But then, as we see time and time again, when we dig into the lore, you start looking closer.
Right, you realize the entire weight of this reality is resting on just like one or two critical blocks near the very bottom.
Exactly. And if you pull one of those out, the whole thing it comes crashing down.
It's entirely an illusion of stability, honestly.
Yeah.
We tend to view major historical or narrative outcomes as these inevitable forces of nature.
Right.
But usually they hinge on incredibly fragile human moments, like a single conversation or momentary hesitation, or just a single, sometimes deeply flawed choice.
Yeah, and today we are going to pull the ultimate Jenga block out of this fictional reality for you. We're asking one question, but it's a question that completely breaks the world as we know it.
I love this premise.
Right. It's huge. So what if Severus Snape never switched sides? What if he just, remained a completely loyal, devoted Death Eater?
It is a phenomenal hypothetical for us to explore. Because when you map out the lore, Snape is arguably the most structurally load-bearing character in the entire architecture of the story.
Oh, without a doubt.
If you remove his defection, literally everything collapses.
Nearly every major driving plot point, every twist, every narrow escape, it all hinges on Snape's involvement.
Right.
He's the one who delivers the prophecy to Voldemort in the first place. He becomes the double agent. He's the protector operating in the shadows for years. If he doesn't turn against Voldemort, the story of the boy who lived literally it ceases to exist. I am incredibly curious to trace the butterfly effect of this dark timeline with you.
Well, to understand how this alternate reality plays out, we actually have to start before the timeline diverges.
Okay, so going back.
Yeah, we have to look at the foundation. Before we can change Snape's ultimate choice on that windy hilltop, we have to deftly examine the psychology of why he chose the dark side to begin with.
Right.
We need to look at what motivated him as a young man.
Because, in the canon timeline, Snape ultimately dies an anti-hero. He sacrifices himself.
He does.
But it's so easy to look at that redemption and forget that as a teenager, he was not a good guy who just made a little mistake.
No, not at all.
He was genuinely immersed in the dark arts, like up to his neck.
Exactly. He was never a conventional hero guided by some innate moral compass of right and wrong.
Right.
If you look at his initial loyalties, they were entirely guided by a desperate need for attachment and a profound desire to belong.
Which makes total sense given his background.
Yeah, his core motivator wasn't a philosophical alignment with evil. It was a reaction to extreme isolation. He grew up in poverty in a neglectful home, and then he arrives at Hogwarts, only to be relentlessly humiliated.
And it wasn't just like casual teasing either. The Hogwarts house system isolated him, and he was targeted by the popular kids, specifically James Potter, who just made his daily life an absolute misery. So he felt entirely powerless. Let's unpack this. It's like someone joining a toxic, destructive street gang simply because it's the first time in their life they've ever felt respected.
That's a perfect analogy.
They aren't necessarily born evil, but they're born feeling utterly defenseless, and they're just seeking armor.
Right, and what's fascinating here is that the dark arts offered him that exact armor. They offered power, identity, and control.
Yeah.
In a world that overlooked and abused him, the dark arts were a tool to level the playing field.
Exactly.
By the time he left Hogwarts, he wasn't just some passive, misguided teenager swept up in a crowd. He was emotionally hardened. He was radicalized.
It was all in.
He was fully willing to serve Voldemort. Not because he was confused about the atrocities Voldemort was committing, but because that specific brand of fear and power gave it a way to channel his deep-seated bitterness into something that felt meaningful.
He wanted revenge against a society that rejected him.
Precisely.
Which makes his transition to the dark side not just logical for his character, but almost inevitable. And that sets the stage perfectly for the moment. Our title line is about to fracture. The eavesdrop in the winter of 1980.
The catalyst for everything.
Yeah. So we're in the Hogshead Inn. Sybil Trelawney is giving an interview to Albus Dumbledore for the Divination Post at Hogwarts.
Right.
And suddenly she goes into a legitimate trance and delivers a prophecy about a boy born at the end of July who will have the power to vanquish the Dark Lord.
And Snape is crouched outside the door, literally listening through the keyhole.
But he only hears the first half, though.
Exactly. He gets discovered and thrown out before he can hear the crucial ending of the prophecy, the part which states that Voldemort will mark this boy as his equal.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. People sometimes paint Snape as this calculating, evil mastermind in the specific moment, but when you look at the mechanics of it, his betrayal of Lily Potter was essentially a fatal administrative error.
Wow. An administrative error with catastrophic stakes. I like that framing.
Right. Because he didn't know he was signing Lily's death warrant. He just hears this intel about a baby born at the end of July. He takes the raw data, runs back to his boss, and passes it along to earn rank within his faction.
He's just playing the corporate ladder of the Death Eaters.
Exactly. Harry and Neville haven't even been born yet. Snape has absolutely no idea that Lily is pregnant.
And this is the key.
Yeah.
Actions, even uninformed ones, have consequences.
Right.
When Voldemort pieces the clues together and decides that the prophecy refers to the unborn child of James and Lily Potter, Snape's entire world just shatters.
Yeah.
The one person he genuinely cares about is now directly in the crosshairs of the most dangerous wizard alive, entirely because he handed over the weapon.
Which leads to the famous meeting on the windy hilltop. A guilt-ridden, totally desperate Snape begs Dumbledore to hide the Potters.
And we see this memory through the pensive later in the lore. And Dumbledore's reaction is incredibly telling here.
Oh, it's brutal.
He is thoroughly disgusted by Snape. He isn't offering warm, grandfatherly comfort. He's acting as a wartime general who sees a crack in the enemy's armor.
Yeah, Dumbledore says something to the effect of, "You do not care, then, about the deaths of her husband and child? They can die, as long as you have what you want."
Right.
It's a harsh, necessary call-out. Dumbledore just strips away any illusion of nobility.
Because Snape isn't there because he realizes the Death Eaters are objectively wrong.
Right. It's not a moral awakening.
Exactly. He isn't having an epiphany about blood supremacy or violence. He is there because the specific consequences of his actions have finally threatened his specific singular attachment.
Oh, yeah.
He pledges his loyalty to Dumbledore in that moment, becoming a spy, not for the greater good, but purely to mitigate his own devastating mistake.
Okay, so that windy hilltop is the Jenga block. That single conversation holds up the entire reality of the wizarding world's salvation.
It does.
So let's pull it out. We are erasing the hilltop meeting. Snape never goes to Dumbledore. He remains a completely loyal Death Eater.
Okay, let's go down this path.
But for this to make psychological sense based on everything we just established, we have to figure out why he stays loyal. Like, if Lily is in danger, why wouldn't he still defect to save her?
Well, there is essentially two possibilities here. The first is that Snape still loves Lily, but he naively believes Voldemort will simply honor his request to spare her life.
But Voldemort sparing someone out of the goodness of his heart, that doesn't track at all.
No, it doesn't.
Even if Voldemort agreed to spare her, and we know he actually did offer her a chance to step aside in the canon timeline, if Lily refuses and dies anyway, Snape would be entirely shattered.
Right, which means the grief and betrayal would inevitably push him to defect to Dumbledore's side after the fact anyway.
Yeah, he'd want revenge.
Exactly. It delays his turn as a double agent, but it doesn't prevent it. He would still dedicate his life to bringing Voldemort down out of spite.
Okay, which leads us to the second possibility, the much darker working theory for our alternate timeline.
The one that changes everything.
Right. The only realistic reason Snape never meets Dumbledore on that hilltop and never defects is that Snape simply no longer loves Lily.
Yep.
Wait, hold on. I have to push back on that. Snape not loving Lily. That is his entire defining character trait.
I know.
We are talking about the man whose Patronus was a doe, matching hers. We are talking about the famous always moment. How is it even psychologically possible to write that out of his character? Doesn't the Patronus prove his love was pure and permanent?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it proves his obsession was permanent in the original timeline, driven heavily by the guilt of causing her death.
Okay.
But if we look at the reality of their relationship before she died, it is actually incredibly plausible that his feelings could curdle. Think about the facts of their adolescence.
Right, they had a falling out.
A huge one. She explicitly cut him out of her life at Hogwarts after he called her a severe blood purist slur.
That is a fair point. They drifted completely apart long before the prophecy was even made.
And who does Lily ultimately marry? James Potter.
His worst enemy.
The very architect of Snape's daily humiliation and trauma. From Snape's perspective, Lily didn't just reject his romantic advances. She fundamentally rejected his entire existence by choosing the exact world and the exact man that had caused him the most pain.
Ouch. Yeah, when you put it like that.
Over time, that kind of profound emotional distance and perceived betrayal easily erodes pure affection.
Actually, creator of the lore herself noted at one point that Snape craved membership in something powerful and foolishly thought Lily would find him impressive as a Death Eater.
Right.
He thought power would win her over, which just shows how deeply he misunderstood her core values in the first place.
Exactly. He craved membership in something powerful to compensate for his insecurity. When Lily chose the opposing side and left him behind, it's very easy to see how a man as prone to resentment as Snape would allow bitterness to completely replace affection.
He would convince himself he hated her just to protect his own ego.
Precisely.
So if we establish that parameter, that by 1980, Snape's love has turned into bitter indifference, then there is no tether left to pull him away from Voldemort.
Not at all.
He overhears the prophecy, he delivers it to his master, he realizes it might mean Lily's death, and he simply doesn't care.
And with his lingering affection completely erased, the first domino in our new timeline falls. If Snape doesn't care, he never warns Dumbledore.
Oh, wow.
And if Dumbledore isn't warned that Voldemort has specifically interpreted the prophecy to mean the Potters, the entire defense strategy changes.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of that defense. Because in the original story, Dumbledore's frantic reaction to Snape's warning sets massive protections in motion, specifically the Fidelius charm.
Right. And the Fidelius charm is not just some simple shield spell. It is an incredibly complex piece of magic that involves taking a secret and hiding it entirely inside a living soul, the secret keeper.
Right, and as long as that person doesn't willingly reveal the secret, the hidden people are utterly undetectable.
Yeah.
Like, even if Voldemort is standing right in front of their house, he can't see it.
Exactly. But casting magic of that magnitude requires preparation. It requires knowing the threat is imminent.
Which they don't know in this timeline.
Without Snape's warning, there is no frantic rush. The Potters don't go into a highly fortified safe house in Godric's Hollow. They don't cast that last-ditch Fidelius charm.
Which means Peter Pettigrew never becomes the secret keeper and therefore doesn't have the opportunity to betray them in the same way.
The prophecy still exists, sure, but now it exists in a total vacuum, free from the interference of Snape's guilt and Dumbledore's countermeasures.
It's like leaving your front door wide open and going to sleep, completely unaware that a master thief has circled your house on a map that very night.
That's exactly what it is. And because there is no elaborate game of cat and mouse to find their hidden location, the timeline of the First Wizarding War wildly compresses.
Because Voldemort doesn't have to spend a year searching for them.
Right. He doesn't have to wait until October 31st, 1981 to strike. He has a target, he has the means, and he has a clear path. He travels to Godric's Hollow much sooner.
So the timeline is accelerated, and Voldemort arrives at the house without facing any of the magical barriers. But the most devastating fundamental change in this dark timeline doesn't happen at the front door. It happens upstairs, inside the nursery.
Yes. This is where the mechanics of magic in this universe reveal their absolute brilliance. We have to look very closely at the nature of Lily's sacrifice and why it worked in the original timeline.
Okay, so, in canon, Voldemort blows the door open, kills James downstairs, goes upstairs, and tells Lily to stand aside. Over and over, he tells her to move.
Right.
But you'd be wondering, why would a ruthless dark wizard offer her a chance to live at all?
It's only because Snape specifically begged him to spare her life.
Exactly. That plea from Snape is the crucial active ingredient.
Because Snape asked for a favor, Voldemort, perhaps merely to appease a useful servant, gave Lily a genuine choice.
Yeah.
She was offered the explicit opportunity to walk away, but she voluntarily refused. She actively chose to die to shield her son.
So what does this all mean? It means it's that specific, voluntary choice that triggers the ancient sacrificial magic.
Right.
It's not wand magic. It operates on archaic laws of sacrifice. That is what rebounds the killing curse and protects Harry.
Which raises a really important point about how magical law operates here. Intention and choice are everything. I mean, think about it. Why didn't James's death protect Lily and Harry?
Oh, that's a great question. Because James fought bravely, he died trying to stop Voldemort.
But he wasn't given a choice to step aside. Voldemort was always going to kill him on sight. He was just an obstacle to be removed.
His death was tragic, but magically speaking, it lacked the specific catalyst of choice.
Exactly. And in our dark timeline, without Snape ever asking for mercy, Lily is treated exactly like James.
Oh, man.
She is not offered a way out.
Oh.
Voldemort never tells her to stand aside.
He just walks into the room and eliminates her instantly.
Yes.
And without the option to survive, there can be no true magical sacrifice. Her death is incredibly sad, but magically. It's empty. It carries no weight. It leaves no lasting mark of protection on Harry's skin.
Which brings us face to face with the grim conclusion of this hypothetical. The darkest timeline.
Yeah.
Voldemort casts the killing curse at baby Harry, and without his mother's sacrificial protection, it just works. Lily dies, James dies, Harry dies.
Wow. No boy who lived. No rebounding curse that rips Voldemort's soul apart and forces him into hiding for a decade.
The First Wizarding War doesn't dramatically end in the fall of 1981. Voldemort simply eliminates what he perceives to be his only threat, and he continues his reign of terror, ushering in an era of completely unchecked destruction.
It is incredibly bleak, but this brings up a fascinating paradox about the prophecy itself.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if the prophecy explicitly says that this boy will have the power to vanquish the Dark Lord and that one must die at the hand of the other, how can Voldemort just walk in and kill him as a baby? Doesn't the fact that Voldemort succeeds prove the prophecy was just totally fake?
Well, it doesn't prove it was fake, but it reveals the true nature of prophecies in this universe.
Okay.
As Dumbledore notes later in the lore, the Department of Mysteries is filled with countless dusty glass orbs containing prophecies that were never fulfilled.
Right. So just because a prophecy is spoken into existence doesn't mean it's an absolute lock on reality. It's not like a predestination trap.
Exactly. Prophecies in this world don't dictate reality. They invite it. They're possibilities, like gravity wells.
Right.
They only gain power, they only start to bend reality around them when someone actively chooses to act upon them.
So it's Voldemort's own hubris. His belief in the prophecy is the only thing that actually sets the danger in motion. In the original timeline, by acting on the prophecy and inadvertently triggering that highly specific sacrificial magic, he gave Harry the very tools required to defeat him. He fulfilled the prophecy by trying to prevent it.
But in our dark timeline, by successfully killing the baby without triggering that ancient magic, he essentially unwrites his own doom.
Wow.
The prophecy fails. Not because Sybil Trelawney was a fraud in that moment, but because the almost impossibly fragile conditions required to twist that prophecy back onto Voldemort were never met. Its potential simply dies in the crib.
Take a second to think about the implications here for you as a listener. Think about the incredible fragility of history, whether it's real history or the intricate history of a fictional world you love. The entire architecture of the wizarding world's salvation, the downfall of the greatest Stark wizard of all time, the survival of countless thousands of people. None of it came from a grand, intentional spell cast by a noble hero. It came from one deeply flawed, bitter, compromised man's lingering affection for a childhood friend who had outgrown him. Snape's desperate love is the only reason the universe survived. Without it, the bad guy just wins.
He does. But before we close the book on this dark timeline, there is one final provocative wrinkle to this whole scenario that you have to consider based on the lore.
I am bracing myself. What is another layer to this?
So we established that the prophecy mentions a boy born at the end of July to parents who had thrice defied Voldemort.
Right.
As the lore reminds us, there were actually two boys who fit that exact description perfectly that year. Harry Potter and Neville Longbottom.
Oh, wow. That completely changes the narrative trajectory.
Voldemort chose to target Harry because Harry was a half-blood like himself, seeing him as a greater reflection of his own power.
Right.
But in this alternate timeline, Voldemort easily eliminates Harry in 1981. The threat is seemingly gone, but the prophecy still hangs in the air, unfulfilled in the Department of Mysteries.
So, wait. If Harry dies, does the magical weight of destiny automatically shift? Does the prophecy look for a new target?
That is the question you have to ask yourself. Does the universe demand balance? If Voldemort continues his reign, does a teenage Neville Longbottom eventually rise up to face him?
Oh, man.
Would Voldemort's easy victory in Godric's Hollow ironically ensure that he creates an entirely different boy who lived a decade later?
That is a fascinating paradox to end on. Pulling out that one Jenga block doesn't just destroy the tower. It might force the universe to build an entirely new one with completely different pieces. The permutations really are endless.
They really are.
Well, we are going to leave you to mull over that entirely new branch of the timeline. The next time you look at a sweeping epic story, remember to look down at the foundation. Look for that one fragile, unexpected block holding the whole thing up, because once it's gone, the reality you know is gone forever.